Hello, so today we are going to study gerunds and infinitives. This sounds like Chinese, but you already know a lot of this stuff, okay? So we are going to do this section, we are going to study this in 5 different parts, okay? 5 parts. In part number 1, which starts now, this is going to be the basic question. What is a gerund? And what is an infinitive? So a gerund is a gerund is normally when you use an ing form, okay? When a verb ends in ing, that is a gerund. So for example, if you have the verb play and you say playing, playing is the gerund for play. Or if you have, for example, do and then you say doing, doing is the gerund for do. And finally, when you have come, and finally you say coming, coming is the gerund for come, all right? And what is an infinitive? An infinitive is the verb when it's preceded by the word to, okay? So for example, when you have the word play, the infinitive is to play. When you have the verb do, the infinitive is going to be to do. And when you have the verb come, the infinitive is going to be to come. All right. So far, so good. This is super easy. Part 1 is super easy. Let's go to part 2. Part 2 is going to be about likes and dislikes. There are some verbs, as you can see here in the first examples, play, do, and come are 3 different verbs that have nothing to do with expressing the things that we like or that we don't like. So for example, when you say I like apples is a good sentence, okay? That's alright, you say I like apples. But what if you want to say I like, and the verb is eat, and then you say apples? That's not the same, because maybe you don't like apples. Maybe you like with smell. Maybe you don't like the taste. Maybe you only like the smell. So what verbs do we write here? Do we write a gerund or do we write an infinitive? So in the case of likes and dislikes, this is going to be super easy, because normally it is very widely accepted that you can use both of them. You can say I like eating or I like to eat apples. Alright, there is a slight difference in meaning. That is that if you use the gerund, it is normally believed that you are referring to something general, and infinitives it's something more specific, but you don't have to worry about that, okay? Normally you can use both. So in this case you can say smelling or you can say to smell, and both options are perfect, okay? So every time that you find the verbs like, love, hate, prefer, enjoy, these kind of verbs, all right, every time you find these verbs, the next verb you can use either a gerund or an infinitive. It doesn't matter. It's up to you to choose, okay? It's easy, right? Okay, let's go to something that is also easy, part 3, that is about prepositions. Every single time that you find a preposition, like for example, about, the next verb is going to be in the ing form, in gerund form, okay? So for example, you can have the film. Well, the film is a bad example actually. Let's say the idea is, no, I don't like that either. Okay, let's say what about going to the beach? Oops. What about going to the beach? Okay, so when you have about, the preposition about, the next verb is going to be a gerund. It's going to be an ing form, okay? It happens the same with any preposition. For example, the preposition for, you can say I am ready for, okay, let's start with a simple sentence. I'm ready for Christmas. And now let's introduce a verb. let's say I'm ready for buying Christmas decoration. All right, so as you can see here, again, you have an ing form. Okay, this happens with all prepositions except one, except the preposition to, because obviously the preposition to goes together with the infinitive. Okay, so this is number 3, prepositions. Now let's go to the difficult part, guys. Part 4 is about let's say selecting. Let's call this selecting, because some verbs are always followed by a gerund and some verbs are only followed by an infinitive form. If you take the English dictionary and you select all the verbs, you are going to make 2 columns. In one column you are going to place the verbs that are together with gerunds, and in another column you are going to place all the verbs that go together with infinitives. That means that every single verb in English is together with a gerund or an infinitive. For example, the verb decide. If you use decide in a sentence, you can say, I have decided to stay here. And it's impossible to use a gerund. Okay? You have to use an infinitive. I have decided to stay here. Or for example, the word remember. Okay? Do you remember, or did you? Did you remember to lock the door? Again, it's impossible to use a gerund. For us, it's compulsory to use an infinitive here. Same case with try. Let's try to fix the television. For example, let's try to fix the television. These are some examples of verbs that are always together with an infinitive. Now, there are also some verbs that are always followed by a gerund, like for example, avoid. Okay, you can say, I really want to avoid becoming my parent. Okay, or you say, he admitted lying, okay, to me. Or miss, I miss talking to you. Okay, miss talking to you. So these are examples that, as you can see, all of these verbs are in the gerund form, in the ing form. So bad news for you, you have to remember. Okay, you have to remember which verbs are followed by infinitives and which verbs are followed by a gerund. You have a list in your book on pages 123 and 124 in your student's book, where you can find the lists for the verbs that go together with to and the verbs that are followed by gerunds. Okay, so this is all about gerunds and infinitives. Let's just speak about part number 5, which is going to be easy. Okay, the hard part is selecting. This is the difficult part. Okay, so please pay a lot of attention to this. Let's go to number 5 then. Okay, part number 5 and last one is that some verbs admit both possibilities. Okay, these verbs are only 3 verbs. They are begin, start, and continue. You can use these verbs regardless. You can use them with gerunds or infinitives. You can say, let's begin to play, or let's begin playing Ludo, for example. Okay, or you can say let's start to play, or let's start playing Ludo. It's exactly, or let's continue to play, let's continue playing Ludo. Okay, you can say this. These 3 verbs are your friends. You can use them with gerunds and infinitives. All right, so so much for explaining. Right now you know when to use the gerunds, when to use the infinitives. All that is left for you is to practice. So let's try to practice with this, guys. I'm going to send you some practical exercises for you to try to crack the code behind the gerunds and infinitives. All right, again, if you have any questions, any commentaries, please just let me know. I'm available for you 24/7. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.